Football is just about highs and lows. From the beginning of your career until now, you never complete it. You can never complete your life, or you can never complete your career.
Right, Christian, starting off, what's your earliest memory of football, mate?
I think even going all the way back to like preschool, kindergarten stage, where I remember just a pitch, just with like five-a-side pitch with like different plants and trees around, but like almost like an arena, and I just remember love being there, or love being outside. It's where the journey really started, and always played with my dad from a young age in the yard where we lived, and always just enjoyed it.
And back then it was just playing for fun, so...
Yeah, of course.
Who were your heroes, and who did you support as a kid?
As a kid, it would be Real Madrid mostly.
Really?
Yeah, Spanish football was a big thing in Denmark, all around the world really, where like the Galacticos and the rivalry between them and Barcelona. So that was always my dream team to go to, and Zinedine Zidane was my favorite player. When he moved from Juventus to Real Madrid, that's why I really started to follow Real Madrid and be like, oh, he's a really, really, really good player, if not the best in the world.
Yeah.
And that's something that was always quite inspiring to me.
And were you I asked Shandon this, and I said, were you like the best in your area? And he said he was. So for you growing up in Copenhagen, in your age group, were you kind of always like the best player about, basically?
My parents moved like 30 miles north of Copenhagen when I was 5. So at that little town called Esbjerg, I would say I knew from quite an early age that I was good at football, and was the guy that the other one wanted to play with in the schoolyard when we had time off, and also quickly, you can always see who's number 10, who's the captain, all those stuff, and
it was always you.
Yeah, I think as I recall it, but so you have an idea, but I also remember like hitting a stage in my life around maybe 10, 11, 12 where I didn't feel like I developed as much. Thinking about that, I remember like having like talks with my father and so on about like, not about quitting or anything, but just like, okay, I can feel I'm not that far ahead anymore. Like
really?
People were trying to people were catching up on me, and like the things that I probably could or did was not as brilliant anymore. And like, because I've never really been the most like skillful player or like quickest player in the team. It's more like been my determination, and I think that's in the end also what brought me where I am today, with the mindset and the mentality towards football, and not all the physical abilities.
So were you quite studious then with football, whereas a lot of kids would have been a bit more flary? Like even speaking to Pontus, he was like a freestyler at a young age and stuff like that, but you were very studious with it.
Definitely, and for me it was all about winning. Like it was all about making the team better. So after school you go to like a free time club, we call it in Danish, where like you'd hang out until your parents got off from work, and they would pick you up, and we would play five-a-side, and I always enjoyed being with the worst players, because I found it more challenging, and I felt like if I could win with them, like bringing them up, bringing their level up, that would always like giving me even bigger joy than just winning with the best guys there.
And when did you start playing in an actual team then?
An actual team, I played in an actual team since I was 5. But then moving from Esbjerg, which was this small town, into Lyngby, that was when, of course, I started there on like a trial 2 times a week for 6 months, and then they offered me like, you can come here full time, and that's where I got my first contract, and that's when things started to. Yeah.
It is a special club, isn't it? I didn't realise how much talent has come from that club, and also coaches. Thomas was there just before you. Current Danish national team coach Kasper Hjulmand was there as well. Yeah. It's a club that I'm trying to compare it to a club here. Like Crew Alexandra here has been famed for its academy and a few other clubs. It is a special club over in Denmark, isn't it?
It is definitely famous for producing a lot of talent, and even the manager that won the Danish championship last year with Brøndby, he was also from Lyngby, and there's a lot of both players and coaches that come from there. Like I said, they would always do their scouting mostly in the like North Copenhagen area, even further north, and they would get him in at a young age, and Lyngby was always like a top 2 or 3 team in like under 15, under 17, under 19, and that made it a very attractive place for players to go and develop, because their coaching staff were brilliant to improve us players.
And then you made your debut there at a young age. How old were you? 16, 17 or?
17.
17. Mm. And then not long after that, you get this move to Germany, to one of the biggest clubs in Germany traditionally as well, a historic club, Hamburg.
Yeah.
How did that move come about? Because having only played one game in Denmark.
Yeah, I played one game, and I think 2 months after I was gone, and I didn't play very well in that game, so it couldn't have been that game that got me the move. I remember them showing their interest, and but Lyngby was quite rejective at the start, and the manager said quite clear to me, we want you to stay, and we see a big future for you in Lyngby. And I was like, yeah, okay, I don't mind staying, but well, let's see what happens. And then they kept interest going, Hamburg, and they made a new offer, and eventually Lyngby was like, okay, this is quite good for us, and if you are keen to go there and at least, see the facilities and have a talk with the sports director, which was Danish at the time, Frank Arnesen. It was like, yeah, okay, it doesn't harm to go down and look at it, and the facilities was just top notch, and went there with my agent, my family, and it was just really good experience, and I was, again, quite determined to drop out of school and follow my dreams, and so I decided to join Hamburg.
And had that been kind of the dream, you'd want to move into somewhere in Europe eventually at some point? Was that kind of how you saw your career going one day?
Yeah, but I mean, I was doing, gymnasium at the time, and was only halfway through. And both my parents are like long educated people, where like they prefer that I should stay in school and finish that before going abroad. But like I was linked up with, I think, Milan at the time when I was 16, and I went to trial in Hoffenheim, another German club, and so there were interest around Europe, because we had a really good year. 1994. That year was really good players, and we went to the Euros and the World Cup in Mexico. So a lot of interest was, a lot of buzz around us players at the time.
Yeah.
So in the end, I was like, look, Mom and Dad, I need to go and do this. I mean, I can't say no to this. And they said, of course, it's your choice. We'll back it up.
So in Germany, you played for Hamburg too. Is that?
So I arrived there, and I could still play under 19s, but I was settled in the under 23. Played the first 6 months with the under 23. Did really well.
Yeah.
And then I got a place in the first team squad. Got my number, my place in the changing room, and I had a fantastic preseason with the first team, and was on the bench in the opening game in Bundesliga. Played, I think, 15 minutes against Barcelona in a friendly match with like 60,000, and just to play in front of that many people was special, of course. So I had a really good preseason, but then I don't know, I feel like the pressure started to get to me a little bit. I was definitely being a little bit too maybe nervous in training, and didn't really knew how the tone was in a changing room. It's quite tough, Germany, like what is it now, 10 years ago, and it was even tougher 20 years ago in Germany. So coming as a young kid who hadn't really tried anything, hadn't tried to be away from home, just come in there and you get two-footed in training. Wow. and people would like, it's competition, right? They see you as maybe a threat of someone who could go and take their spot, and they just, instead of, like, I'm not saying they were all idiots, because they were really nice and kind outside the pitch, but on the pitch there were no mercy. Yeah. And I had to live with that and understand that, and trying to learn from that. But I think that got the better of me in my time in Hamburg.
So, but do you think it also helped you develop in a roundabout kind of way? And did you take stuff from that experience? And people would say the old school mentality around that is it toughens you up. Mm. What effect did it have on you, like sat here today, do you think, that time in Germany? Yeah,
I've learned things that I've used and told myself throughout my career. So I remember a player called Tolgay Aslan at the time. He also went to play for Udinese and Besiktas, and a very, very good player, played my position. And one day after training, we came in, and he was like, Chris, remember that, when we say something to you in training, or we talk or whatever, it's nothing personal. That's just how it is. We set demands for each other, and
Yeah.
You shouldn't take that personal, but that's just how it is. And if you can't handle it, you will find it really difficult to get a breakthrough. Yeah? And I remember it just stuck with me for a long time. And I've also said it to younger players here in Brentford, that sometimes I do say something, quite hard on you, but afterwards I always try to go and say, there's nothing personal about it. It's just, that's the mindset we should have. We should be able to say constructive things to each other. We should be able to criticize each other without people getting offended by it. I think it's very important. And then, but we can get to that later, but coming back to Brøndby, then there were different issues and different learning experiences, but also got on from that and learned from that. And I think it's just like, you never complete it. You can never complete your life, or you can never complete your career. It will always be something to learn, something to pick up, and that's really fascinating, I think.
Amazing. So you kind of alluded to it there. From Hamburg, you go back to Denmark and play for Brøndby, who local to where you kind of grew up.
Yeah. I moved back in with my parents straight away. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. For 6 months until I found an apartment.
And did that kind of, do you think, help you a little bit after? Because like you said, it must have been a tough time moving away in another country and stuff like that. Did that kind of just what you needed moving back home when you found your next club?
Oh, definitely. Like, it was just, safety, right? And like moving back home. I had a girlfriend at the time, to get close with her because she was flying back and forth, and definitely that was just like, it was nice to. For my personal and mental point of view, it was the right decision to go home and just try and digest and absorb all the things that I've witnessed and learned in Germany to try and get better and improve.
And that's where you're reunited with Thomas at this point. And this is where you really kick on at Brøndby, and it goes amazing for you there.
Yeah, I mean, it did the last 2 years, but I was there for 5, so the first 3 years were really up and down. And
really?
I had really tough times the first 3 years. I couldn't really get in as a starter. I was fighting with, I got cramp after 60 minutes every time because my body was too tense before games. I also went quite open about it in an interview in Denmark, saying that I felt I had mental issues in terms of being nervous before games, or I would if I got criticism from outside, from the fans, say, I would take it very, very hard, and I would look through forums and comments and all that stuff to try and see if I played a good or a bad game, even though I already knew at the time. Yeah. But it was just really hard time for me, and that was under Thomas. So that was definitely not a good period for me as a football player. But it was again one of the times in my career and life where I really learned so much about myself and so much about how the mind works, and I just know for a fact that there are so many other players who's been in that positions, but maybe find it hard to speak open about it, or don't know how to get through with it. But it's important, and it shows that it is possible to get through it, even though you can fight those things.
And how did you get through it? Were you talking to your teammates about this? Were you talking to Thomas about it, or were you kind of keeping it quiet to yourself? Because I guess in the modern world now, at least we're kind of saying speak about these things, and conversations are happening a lot more. But
no, we had a mental coach that I'm still working with now. He was connected to Brøndby at the time, and I spoke with him quite openly about it. And with the way the communication, how it went to, of course, Thomas, then Brøndby, and my teammates, was more like I felt ill, so I was maybe getting a headache before a game, or I had then a week off because I felt ill. But I think I knew what it was. I was just being too caught up in football and what the world did to me at the time. And but I still loved football, and I wanted to get back to the joy of it. And do you think there was a bit of the pressure of, at a young age, moving to Germany, this Bundesliga club, and so much happened so fast? So you made that one appearance, and you said you didn't even think you played particularly well. So you'd already criticising your performance on your debut, professional debut. You get this move to Germany, and then you come back and you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself again, and then all these things are coming together. Do you think a lot happened very quickly then for you, maybe? Yeah, maybe. And I think you're right. And of course, it was different things that I struggled with. So in the Germany, it was more internally in the squad with the teams. I found it really hard to be myself and to accept the criticism from them. When I went to Brøndby, which is a massive club, I always talk of it as the equivalent to Leeds here. the amount of support there is around Brøndby and how exposed you are sometimes as a player is quite significant. And that was a big transition for me, because the newspapers in Germany didn't really care about me, but in Brøndby it was differently, and you know, there was
more pressure.
More pressure, exactly, and more people recognize you more around Copenhagen and all that stuff. It was also a big step, maybe not in the club level, because Hamburg was, you know, a bigger club than Brøndby was, but you know, I still went on to play on a bigger stage because I was playing now in front of all these people, and a lot of them had an opinion which at the time got to me. And so it was different things that I struggled with, but again, one of the things you put in the back, and then you have it for new things.
Can you remember when it clicked in those last 2 years? Do you think
We got a new manager. We got a German coach named Zorniger. Very, very tough coach, and like the media would only put it out to, you know, they had made a list of players that this coach would be good for, and a list of players that this would be really bad for. And I was on the really bad for list, and I remember calling my agent at the time, like, okay, what do we do here? This German maniac is coming now, and I'm already hanging by a thread, so I didn't really know what to do. It's like, I know this guy actually, and let's see how it evolves. And he said, you're going to be the sixth, you're going to be the defensive midfield player, and that's when it clicked. I trained really well. I played really well in the beginning, and I never looked back. And he was good in the sense that he didn't really care about how you felt. I remember one time we played a semi-final in the cup, and I was cramping, you know, by the end of the game, and I would come out to him and say, I'm done, I can't play anymore. He took my face or my shoulder, he slapped me, and he said, it's only in your head, go in.
Wow.
And I jumped back in, and I was like, okay, it's only in my head. And I went on to score the winner in the game, going to the final afterwards. So it's just one example of how his coaching style was at the time, and at the time that was exactly what I needed. Like someone to just don't think too much, just do what I say. And for me, that was the guidance and the kind of leadership I needed at the time to develop as a player.
Amazing. Like you say, you're winning awards and you're scoring goals, and you're enjoying your football again, and then it's no surprise that another giant of Italian football now comes in for you in Fiorentina. Did you have any apprehension about moving again? Because obviously you've just got into your groove at Brøndby.
True. I've been there for 2 years then, and we were, you know, we fell just before the goal line and lost the championship in the last round and that was devastating for me and the club. I just played a really, really good season personally, and I was also like, this might be a good time for me to see what can come up. And I wasn't determined that I had to move in that window, but when Florence and Fiorentina was mentioned, it was hard for me to not at least check out the things and their offer. And like, their offer wasn't, for Brøndby it was alright. I think in terms of the budget, what they offered me on a personal level was not top, but it was still a chance. It was much better than what I had in Brøndby, and it was a place where, like, if you can show it there now, and I felt so ready at the time that I could go there and show that I'm the best six in Italy, then there would be, like, speaking of Real Madrid,
that's the next step.
That's the next step if you can join the top of Italy. But yeah, I also found out reality was different sometimes, and again, another learning experience, another thing you put in the back.
I've been to Florence, it's amazing. I've been to Fiorentina Stadium, and it's incredible, and there's a lot of, they're very passionate again. Very. All the places around, all the bars, Battistutas everywhere, and it's kind of the violas everywhere, and Florence is an incredible place, but very different culturally again, I imagine. So was that hard again, adjusting to life in Italy basically?
Yeah, it was very, very hard. I would say the adjustment in terms of the living was easy, because it is easy living there. It's nice, it's really nice. People are so friendly. It's so, I mean, if you're getting things delivered, they might not show up in time, but I mean, you still get the sense that people are trying to help you, and you know, of course, the weather is fantastic, the food is fantastic, and all that stuff. The living style is really nice, but again, it was also a cultural change in terms of language and how they were playing and all that stuff. Where
what was it like football-wise? How was it? Because everyone, the lazy thing for me to say here is a more defensive game in Italy. How did you find it different out there, football-wise?
I don't think it is anymore. I think you really see a lot of goals now in Italy, and a lot of like back and forth football. But I remember coming from a system where it was very much zonal orientated, and like where I could just jump in a pressure, and even if he went by me, there would be another guy to just take the ball. Where like going to Italy and going to Florence, it was very like, you just have to beat your opponent. It was you versus your opponent, and it was just whoever was strongest would win that battle. And there was not a teammate behind you who would just take over that battle. Then you'd have to recover differently. So that was a big transition for me, and that's why I found hard to.
Because that goes a bit back to when you're saying as a kid, you were very studious and you've got a lot of awareness, and we see it now all the time. Positionally, for me, I think there's not many better in the league. You see, I mean, you always know where to be and so that. So then going, like you say, to Fiorentina, where it's more one-on-one, almost a bit more. I don't want to belittle it, but it's like more like school football. Do you know what I mean? When it's the quickest or the most physical.
Exactly.
It didn't suit your style, basically.
Exactly, and I feel like I got exposed there sometimes in terms of the speedness or the power or the things that I just mentioned that I'm not the best at. And then of course also the language. I didn't manage to pick it up quick enough to be able to be me and to like just sit and have conversations around the lunch or dinner or whatever. Which is a very Italian thing to do. Like you sit and you talk, and you throw your wine around in a glass. And but I was not able to, because they didn't really speak English and I didn't really speak Italian. So that also took a lot of time for me to get more involved. And when I spoke relatively good Italian, it was maybe after 7 or 8 months. And at that time, they were almost already decided on getting me away from the club or like getting me sold. So. It was quite tough at that point to say, okay, I'm gonna stay here and fight my chance. I even told the sports director, I can stay here and fight for my chance. He's like,
that's hard to hear,
mate,
that, isn't it?
You should probably look somewhere else, because you won't be playing here. And to be fair, like I still to this day give him credit for saying that to me straight up, and instead of being,
letting you carry on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, you can stay here and carry on, and then, but you probably he told me as it was, and it was fine. Like,
so you were fine with it. You didn't, because again, this is it's probably one of the first times you've seen rejection in football. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so how do you take that? That's difficult when you've picked yourself up after Hamburg, and after the first few years at Brøndby, you're flying again. You've come there with the excitement, saying, you're thinking in your head, I'm going to show them the best six here. Then it's Real Madrid, and then for someone to say your football's not going to be here. How hard is that to take? Or
I knew it, because I'd just shown for 2 seasons what I could do, even though it was at a different level. I just knew that what I did there, I could do in any league. Yeah. That's how I felt. Of course, we just played in a different way that made it hard for me to show my best. I got that direct message, but I also received it all the way back in Germany. I remember where they said, like, I think you should go back to the youth team again. And that was one of the, okay, should I go back to the youth team or should I go back to Denmark? And I decided to go back to Denmark. So I have had like rejections before in football. In Brøndby, I was for many games also by Thomas put on in the stands as the 19th man. We have that in Denmark, where you do the warm up and then you go with the stands. And that's not the funniest message to get. I got it a lot of times in Brøndby. So I knew how the world worked when I was in Florence, because I was 25 at the time. So it wasn't a big deal because I was of course disappointed that it hadn't really worked out in Florence. But I was also like, I'm not moving back to Denmark now. I mean, I'm still gonna give it a go. So it was all right, actually.
Then of course, fortunately for us,
the mighty bees.
Exactly. Yeah. So how did that come about? Did you know it was going to be Brentford? I imagine you had a lot of offers and stuff like that?
Brentford came in quite early, so I went to look at their facilities, and I went to look at one of the game against Leeds at home quite early in the spring. I didn't really get to explore other options at the time. I remember, there were different interests around Europe, but like maybe in the Belgian league, one of the Dutch league, lower team in Italy, those kind of things. But I felt like the project that Brentford had aiming towards me, and they wanted to buy me, not get me on a loan or something. I did like that as well. They had a clear plan for what I could bring to the table, and knowing Thomas, he made it really clear that I was the type of player that they needed, and they have their way of recruitment and the way of going about their data, and I think I had green light in a lot of those categories, and so I think it was quite an easy choice to join Brentford.
And having been in Florence and at Fiorentina, and having had that experience there, was Thomas a big thing in someone that you knew, some familiarity again, like you had in Bromby when you went home, you had familiarity with your family and the local area. Having someone like Thomas, and not just that, someone that clearly believes so much in you as a person and as a player.
I think the last thing you mentioned is the most important thing, a coach that really believed in my abilities and what I could do for this team. Because of course it was good that I knew Thomas, but that was not the reason why I chose Brentford. The reason was the plan. They had the project they were going through. They were going to play in the Premier League, and then Thomas's belief and trust in me as a player, because that's one of the things again where, like, from Florence I think I've told the story before, but I came into the training ground. We drove 4 hours up to the north of Italy. I joined the pre-season camp, and I came in, and the gaffer was standing in the hallway. Was like, "Yeah, I'm the gaffer. You can call me Mister," and all that stuff. How is the season going in Sweden? You know, and
wow.
I was like, "Really?"
Doesn't even. Yeah.
I just signed the contract. Hey, you thought I played in Sweden, and like, you know, that's one of the things maybe I could have, you know, done better in terms of reaches, but I was just so like, I want to do to make it here. But you know, that was for me very important to know that the manager believed in me, because in the end of the day, the manager sets the team. So yeah.
And then how did you find it initially?
Yeah, initially it was a big, also again a big change from Italy, of course, and but I've really loved English football. I mean, I feel like it suits my way of playing really well, and I love the atmospheres in the stadiums, because it's just a different vibe. It's so loud at times, and it can go so quiet, and then it's so loud at times, and then it goes so quiet, and it's just, you can just feel like the fans are moving with how the games are moving, and you know, if we have a lot of pressure on the opponents, the fans are bang on it, and if there's like a lot of stop and start, people are a bit like, come on, let's get this game started. It's just, I found it really, both challenging, but also really, I enjoyed every bit of it playing here.
Because there's still been tough times. Obviously, the most obvious is Fulham and that playoff final. How did you deal with that? Because obviously there was so much going on at the time as well, and I imagine you weren't able to see family and things like that. And where does that kind of sit in this kind of looking at your journey football-wise, and what impact has that had on you as a player and as a person as well?
That was a really tough time, but like it was not. I had a really good period at that time. I had a really good first season here. I was playing some of my best football around those games. COVID. I remember the run up to the playoff finals. I was at the top of my game. So for me personally, it was more the defeat itself. It was more the disappointment of not going to the Premier League. That was, of course, incredibly hard to take. But where, like, you know, where you maybe have doubted yourself in your career in Germany, times in Brøndby, in Fiorentina. Here I didn't doubt myself. I felt like, wow, I'm back where I really want to be. So for me, it was just so hard, of course, to take the defeat, and the build up. I mean, the build up through it was just insane, right? Like around everyone here remember the Stoke game. We watched Huddersfield play West Brom, and we all, you know, celebrated the goal and the win they got. Huddersfield, it was all in our hands, and then going to Stoke, losing there, going to the Barnsley, not knowing what West Brom would do against QPR. Yeah, it was just. Wow, like even you need to write a movie about it one day. You need to make a movie about those weeks, because it was
And then you're back in, and the emotional roller coaster continues, because then you get your first Denmark cap.
Yeah, true.
So you've gone from this real low, but then you're back up high, and imagine a really proud moment. I know we spoke about it not long after that. And and then it's bang, you're now into a new season without being able to think about it.
But the football is just about highs and lows. From the beginning of your career until now, it's only been highs and lows, and like it's more like, but it's how do you cope with them? How do you get on from them? That's what matters.
So last season was a low, that period where you were out, obviously at the back end of the season. Did you find that tough when we were going for promotion and you get the injury and you can't be involved in such a big season when you, like you said, you'd got back to up there playing wise.
Yeah, it was just after my international debut against Preston at home where I got injured, and it was a really tough period. Of course, I was out for 3 or 4 months almost, and but the team was doing really well. They were doing really well, and of course then we hit a period of games where I think we lost 3 on a bounce, and that was around that time where I think I came in just after, you know, played 20 minutes against Norwich, and then we started to play a bit better. We got some resolve, like Blackburn away and Preston away and all that stuff, and we were fighting to get that automatic, but didn't manage to do it. And then playing the first game against Bournemouth, injury again, couldn't help the teammates, but they did fantastically. And in the end, I mean, it's so hard, but like I wouldn't be here where I am today if the team hadn't managed to win that game. And like, even though it's hard at the time, you don't feel like you're really a part of it. Like, I know you're a big part of it, but there is just like, it's not the same feeling when you sit outside and you're injured, because like it's the same when you lose. Like you just want to be there, you know, even with all the emotion that goes with it.
But you say you weren't really part of it. I was one of the so fortunate people that was at a lot of the behind closed doors games, and you'd be there, and sometimes Pontus would be there. And was that the first time that your role would maybe change in a dressing room, where you were a massive leader in that squad? You still are. Do you see what I mean? You were heavily involved last season, even though you weren't able to play on the pitch. Was that the first time you'd been in that kind of role in the change room?
Yeah, I think so. Especially where it was so important for me to take that role and not just feel sorry for myself and not playing. And I also remember going to Thomas before the semi-final and the final and tell him that I would like the last word before the boys go out. And you know, because I just wanted to give whatever I could and bring whatever I could to the table for the guys to go up. That was important. You know, that was a choice I made to be a part of it, instead of just, you know, sitting in the corner and why me? And so yeah, that was probably the first time where I really had to, by choice, taking even more responsibility of being an even bigger leader.
And then after this whole journey you've been on, can you remember the emotion when you realised you were going to become a Premier League footballer?
Yeah, I can. I mean, it's even though I didn't play, it's still one of the best days in my football career, because it was like the relief of everything that had happened the year before as well. The Fulham game, the Stoke game, the Barnsley game. It's like you could just, you know, let it all out. I mean, they will still haunt me sometimes, the games.
Yeah.
But it's like, I feel like I had a bit of redemption, if you can say it like that.
Yeah. And then of course, in the summer, you're back at Wembley playing against England. And look, that campaign, obviously, we know what happened with Christian. It was amazing, like a really scary time for you guys. But it also seemed that Danish squad, just the togetherness there, and that must have been something really special to be part of as well.
Yeah, I also have highlighted that as my biggest thing in my career. That to be part of that Euro squad was that is something I will cherish for the rest of my life. Yeah.
And look, it's your birthday coming up.
Yeah.
28. So you've still got a lot to look forward to your career-wise. Have you got any? What's motivating you now, and what do you want to achieve still?
Motivating me now is playing in the Premier League with Brentford. I've enjoyed it so much our first season here, and I am more than convinced that we will play in the Premier League next year as well. I feel like now I'm turning 28, but I still have so many good years because I'm playing my best football now. Of course, I would have loved to play my best football when I was 23. That would have made it even better. But you know, it's so hard to adapt experience from outside. You need to just go through everything in life and get on and learn from it. So right now, like just looking a couple of only weeks, months ahead, it's just keep improving and keep this fantastic club in the Premier League, where I really do think we belong.
Amazing. Thanks for your time, Christian.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Cheers.